When uncertainty actually comes to fruition or comes to reality, you're going to panic. You're going to be worried. And then I'll share what happens when a client calls me and they're worried.
Uncertainty hits hardest when you don't have a plan or you're not sure if your plan still fits your life. Let's talk about why that is and what to do about it. Hello and welcome to Money on Your Mind from Edelman Financial Engines. I'm Michael Liersch, a behavioral scientist, financial planner, and chief planning officer of Edelman Financial Engines. Thanks for joining us for a conversation about how people are feeling about money today. And with me, we're talking with Ron Sisk, a financial planner at Edelman Financial Engines. He's been working with families, with clients for decades. And he joins us from San Diego, where he has a family of his own, and he's spending time with you, with me, to share what he's hearing from clients. So Ron, welcome. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Michael, thank you for the intro and happy to be here. As you said, I live in San Diego. I have 3 beautiful children and a wonderful wife. We're actually high school sweethearts, and I'm looking forward to talking with you today.
Awesome. And I did know that about you, Ron. How long, when you say high school sweethearts, how long have you known your wife? What age were you kind of getting to know each other?
So my wife and I met in English class in freshman year at the age of 14. And I shared with her father, I'm going to marry your daughter. And he said, get out. When we were 14. So long story short, though, is that we dated in high school for a little bit. We broke up for college. And then after college, we got back together. And the rest is history.
Wow. So my wife and I, we met when we were 18. And I think we're just 4 years behind you in the identical storyline, except I didn't tell her dad that I was going to marry her until I was in my 20s. And he pulled me aside and he said, if I did anything to hurt his daughter, he doesn't know what would happen to me next. So I've kept my promise and treated Rachel very well throughout her life. So Ron, it's been really great getting to know you and listening to all the advice and guidance you're giving to your clients. So this is a bit of a reframe for us in terms of our conversation, because now we want to talk about the kinds of, instead of the advice you're giving, Ron, what are the questions you're getting from your clients, especially most recently, because clients, you and I both know, and kind of like everyone wants to know, what is everyone else saying? And is it the same as me? Is it different than me? So I just want to go there, Ron, with you. And we haven't really done a lot of this. So what are you hearing? What are you hearing on the ground when your ears to the ground with your clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most of my meetings right now, clients are bringing up, are we in an AI bubble? Okay. They're asking, are we in a recession or is a recession coming? They're afraid of a market correction because markets are at all-time highs. And I think overall, clients always fear uncertainty. And then when they fear uncertainty, they put a label on it. And that might be all-time highs. It might be market correction. It might be AI bubble. It might be recession. But I feel like they're always asking, am I going to run out of money? And if I do run out of money, what happens? And more so, they're always looking for reassurance that they're going to be okay. So
let's talk a little bit about the AI bubble.
Yeah.
And uncertainty with respect to an AI bubble and how it links to a lot of the things you're saying, because we can think of AI bubble as exciting, right? There's a utopia to that, right? The machine's going to do a lot of our work with us and for us and make all our lives easier so we can spend more time with family and friends and doing wonderful things, taking trips, working a lot less. Why do you think that's leading to an uncertainty? I mean, we can think of things like jobs and insecurity on that topic, but beyond that kind of obvious idea, what else is on people's minds when it comes to AI bubble and that uncertainty you're describing about things like not having enough?
Yeah, I think that clients hear that the Magnificent Seven is making up most of the return of the S&P 500.
Yeah.
And that the other 90 493 stocks are not performing as well as the Magnificent Seven. I think also when they hear AI bubble, right, we're naturally going to go back to other bubbles that have formed. And in most recent for investors, that's going to be a dot-com bubble in the late 90s to early 2000s.
Oh, I
It's going to
remember
be the
that well,
housing,
Ron.
right? It's going to be the
Yes.
housing bubble in 2008. And then most recently, they feel as if the AI bubble is another one forming.
I
And
see.
so I think a lot of clients are also like, oh my gosh, I was 10 years, 15, 20 years younger when those bubbles formed and popped. I'm afraid that I want to get ahead of it before the next one pops. And
I
that's where they
gotcha.
feel they want to make like some type of decision, some type of action step.
That makes perfect sense because then it's less about things like job insecurity, because that might be more distant, but what's more proximal or close. And everyone knows, Ron, I'm a behavioral finance dork, so I like to use my dorky words, right? So
Please.
when things feel close to people, so I hear you. It's like this idea of what rhymes with a bubble popping. I'm going to remember all those times. And then ultimately, it led potentially to some type of financial insecurity for me or others that I cared about, loved, knew. And
Yep.
I don't want to take that path, that downturn in my own financial life. So they're sharing it with you, it sounds like. And whether they express it as then, it's going to be a recession or it's somehow going to impact me, with respect to markets or, some type of financial outcome. I can't sell my house now, or I can't, ultimately, let's say, make that big purchase that I've always wanted and live my best life. That's, am I intuiting that's where they're coming from and getting your advice and feedback on it?
Yes. Yep. And I think
So,
also they get worried that their accounts are going to go down.
yeah.
And no one likes to see a negative, no one likes to see a loss. And but they happen. That's investing is taking risks. Therefore you have to celebrate the success and also not get too down when there's a loss.
So it's interesting you say that because in behavioral finance, there's this Nobel Prize winning concept that people are averse to losses, and I always joke around a bit like, did we really need to have a Nobel Prize for
How
people
much
not
work do
liking to
we
lose money,
do?
Ron? Right?
Right. Yeah.
Something that you've been working with clients around, sounds like for your entire career. So when we think of that, the more opportunistic side of things and what we do about all this, if we say human beings at their core are uncertainty reduction machines, we all like certain things, certain outcomes, and that really equates to that feeling of security and safety. What types of advice do you give clients in a time of uncertainty where the future isn't known and their financial security doesn't necessarily seem to be obvious going forward, whether it's an AI bubble or a market drop or correction or a potential recession for however long that might happen? What do you say to them? What's the answer here?
So for our clients, we go back to the plan. We go back to our investment strategy and we go back to their personal economy. So because there are folks out there that will be impacted by the recession, there are folks that will be impacted by the AI bubble, whether that's job loss or job reduction or losses in the portfolio if the AI bubble does pop. But for our clients, we're going to focus on what they can control. How much are they spending? How much are they saving? And how much risk are they taking? So we're going to focus on their plan.
I like that, Ron. So really shift the focus from all these things that we just discussed that you're right, the individual, the family unit really doesn't have control over unless you're maybe certain humans in the world who do have control over things, but it's definitely not us, Ron. So then you want to
Correct.
focus them on the things that are in their control, which frankly sounds, when you say planning, investing, it really sounds like the behaviors and the decisions around that. How much risk are you taking to look for the potential reward or loss on the other side? How much do you really need to spend right now if you're concerned to have that security, whatever you want to think of an emergency fund or just money in the bank? Like, what does that look like? What is that amount? It sounds like it's those types of decisions, Ron. Is that right? Whether they're subjective, or meaning that they're based on your own preferences and psychological needs, or they're literal so that you don't run out of money. Is that right? Am I hearing you correctly?
That is correct. We want to give them a plan that I say to my clients, hopefully I've done a good job explaining your plan to you so that when you go out with your friends or colleagues or relatives, you can explain that plan in about 5 minutes. That's the goal. And if you have that plan in place, when the next event occurs, we're going to come back to understanding that we planned for that. We planned for a recession. In fact, I want to talk about this just for a quick second. I'm going to take a little side note. But since World War II, we've had a recession on average, keyword, every 6 years since World War II. And by that math, that means that we should have them every 6 years. However, since 2000, we've only had 3. And that was 2001, 2008, and a little teeny tiny one in 2020. So by the math, we're due for a recession because we should have had 4 since 2000. But we don't know when that's going to come. So we want you to think about and have the proper expectations to your plan when the recession comes, that you have the appropriate emergency fund, that you have the right asset allocation based on your risk tolerance in your time horizon, and that you're diversified. And then lastly, our little silver bullet is we want to be able to rebalance so that when the accounts go down, you have the fortitude, the discipline to buy low because stocks have gone on sale. So those are some of the things that we talk about with clients in a quick nutshell in order for them to be prepared for the next downturn.
I love that. And I love this idea, Ron, of setting the expectation that it's not an if, it's a, when the recession is going to happen, and are you prepared? And I really like this idea of being able to explain that plan, because sometimes plans, financial planning feels like giant meetings with 100-page documents and,
right.
All these, complexities, and I can barely understand it or read it. And I want to fall asleep talking about it. What you're really saying is, no, can you tell us how much money do you have in the bank to, make sure you can navigate through a rainy day? Do you know how much your accounts could go down if there was a downturn? Have you talked about that? And is that okay with you? And would you stay the course? And ultimately, would you almost be even more confident to put more money into that investment plan? So Ron, I just think that's excellent advice for our listeners and viewers. Can you provide, just the one thing that you would suggest they do right now?
I would say make sure you have an appropriate emergency fund.
Love that, Ron. So how much money do you have that you can access immediately should you need it in the event of a rainy day, whether something breaks or whether you have a job loss? Is that right, Ron? Just a moment where you need access to money. How much do you have access to?
Correct. The benefit of having an emergency fund is that when uncertainty actually comes to fruition or comes to reality, you're going to panic. You're going to be worried. And then I'll share what happens when a client calls me and they're worried. The first thing I do is I acknowledge their concern. I listen and I hear it. And then we go through their scenario. How much do they have in their retirement accounts? How much do they have in their non-retirement accounts? What is their house worth? What is their mortgage? What are their other debts? What are their goals? What are their objectives? How much do they have in their savings? And how much do they have in their checking? And once we've reviewed all of their assets and liabilities, often they're feeling a lot better. And if they have the emergency fund, they're going to feel confident that they have a runway to deal with the uncertainty that they're facing, and that they know that they have a time frame in order for them to right the ship. And that might be lowering their expenses. It might be moving. It might be cutting out things that they've enjoyed but were discretionary. And those are the types of conversations we have with clients. The should we buy fund A or should we buy fund B? Our investment management team can handle that. That's what they do all day long. It's more about the behavior of how a client can react when they hear that uncertainty.
And that makes that Nobel Prize winning idea make more sense, Ron.
Yeah.
So I love that. People, when they are losing, they panic, do things that maybe they shouldn't do. And what you're saying is, let's actually account for that. So when that moment comes, you do the right thing. Thank you, Ron, for sharing your great insights and advice. And honestly, Ron, thank you to all your clients for being so vulnerable, authentic with you about their fears, their concerns, especially in this overall concept of uncertainty. We're so grateful that you've normalized everything from markets potentially going down to what you should do about it. So I just wanted to, on everyone's behalf, say thank you for joining us, and any last words before we part ways with our audience.
Thank you, Michael. Here are my last words. Save early, save often, save till it hurts, and save a little more.
You heard it here. Save, save, and save more. And again, thank you, Ron, so much.
Thanks for having me.
So it was great to get Ron's wisdom from him, his clients. And I want to say, if any of this feels familiar, or if someone in your life is stuck in a place like this, talk to a professional. It's really important. Another human being can really help you think through what your options are, as Ron would say, your scenarios, and what matters most, and honestly, what you can let go of in terms of a concern. A financial advisor or a planner who will sit with you and understand those things and help you through those next steps is really someone who's going to help you navigate that uncertainty so you're not alone. Conversation can change everything. And as a behavioral scientist, I can tell you, human beings are social creatures. We love to talk. We love to share what's on our minds. So go and do that today. We'll have more money on your mind from Edelman Financial Engines for you next week. So I hope you can listen in. Be sure to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening. Until then, I'm Michael Liersch. This is Money on Your Mind. Take care of yourselves. The views expressed are not necessarily those of this station. Information is believed to be reliable but is not guaranteed. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute investment, legal, insurance, or tax advice. It is not an offer to buy or sell any product and does not represent an endorsement of third parties. All investments have inherent risks. Consult a financial advisor before investing. Individual results may vary. The show is pre-recorded. Money on Your Mind, produced by Edelman Financial Engines and hosted by Michael Liersch.